Good morning and happy Wednesday, everybody. Actually, let me back up a little bit. Unfortunately, this rug slides a lot, so you're going to have to bear with me in terms of how I present myself here. So, you know what? It's kind of fitting that I'm talking about what I'm talking about today, because I am quite literally in the mood to do that. Yesterday was kind of a long day. Just a long, not really fun day. It rained a lot. Got another argument with my mom. You would have thought yesterday was Monday. That's how bad it was. Which reminds me, happy hump day, folks. Did anything good happen yesterday? Well, yeah, actually, for a really long time, let me see if I can get a little closer for you. It's where I literally just moved back, and I gotta move closer to see this. I actually had something like on my nose, like right here, for quite a few years. And yesterday, I actually went to the doctor to get it removed. I mean, it really wasn't anything serious. It's like something like pre-cancerous or whatever. Obviously, it just remained pre-cancerous, because if it actually was cancer, then I probably wouldn't be here right now. You know, a little liquid nitrogen, just, you know, kind of sprayed it off. I'll tell you what, though, it burned for a little bit afterwards. This is why, like, you don't play with liquid nitrogen, folks. Like, leave that to the specialists, okay? Kids, like, don't play with liquid nitrogen, okay? Seriously. And I do have a few acts of kindness. I emptied the dehumidifier, took out the garbage, emptied and filled the dishwasher. So, you know, I did a lot. So, enough beating around the bush here. Let's get into why it's appropriate for me to be feeling the way I'm feeling right now. Because if you recall a week ago, I mentioned how when I was at Trinity-Pawling, I dealt with the worst teacher and the worst student I ever knew at Trinity-Pawling. Last week, I talked about the former, the worst teacher I ever had. If you need a refresher, basically, during the winter trimester, he cussed me out saying all I do is say stupid shit. Which, again, I have a lot of teacher friends. I know none of them worth their weight in salt would ever do that. It does not surprise me he's not at Trinity-Pawling anymore. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he's not teaching anymore. But I digress. Today, I'm here to talk about the worst student I ever knew. Now, some of you who know me are familiar with who you might think it is. See, when I first got to Trinity-Pawling, there was one student who really was the cream of the crop in terms of just how awful he was. No question. My first interaction with this person wasn't even an interaction at all. He walked by me and he hit me in the you-know-where. For no reason. Now, I had already been through enough trouble at Horsehead several times getting hit in the you-know-where. So, needless to say, I immediately did not like this person. And it only got worse from there. From, obviously more hits in the you-know-where, to throwing books at me, to throwing a bottle at me, a plastic bottle, but it was, but a bottle nonetheless. Actually, I don't know how, but like the top part of the bottle, obviously where the plastic is the hardest, that's the part that got me. There was a giant like welt in my head. It was awful. Hit me with a stick. And hands down, the worst he ever did was, and keep in mind, I never told him he was right about this. I never wanted to tell him he was right about this. However, this is back when it was believed that I was on the spectrum, more of that in December, and he called me an autistic retard. Keep in mind, like, I never told him he was right. I never gave him a reason to believe he was right. He pretty much just guessed and he rolled with it. You're probably wondering how I was able to forgive him then. Well, it was about 10 years after I had literally just gotten back about a week or so removed from my 10-year reunion at Trinity-Pawling. And out of the blue, no shit, he reached out to me. He sent a friend request to me on Facebook. I was shocked. I mean, I really had to give this a lot of thought. I mean, this guy, for all intents and purposes, did a lot of really horrible stuff to me. No question. But I was thinking, it had been about 10 years since I'd ever seen him. He currently lives out in the state of Washington. Not Washington, D.C., further down south, no, way on the other end of the country. There is a high probability I will never see him again. On top of all that, he's got a wife and kid. I think he has 2 kids. I know he has at least 1 kid. Point is, he has a family now. Clearly, he met someone to sort of tame him, I guess. And, I mean, it'd been 10 years, and he hadn't done anything to me since. And I don't think he'd ever reach out to me unless he had truly changed. And I remember doing this video quite vividly because, no kidding, it was actually the first time, like, it was the day after the first time I ever had peas and macarons. True story. In that video, I said, if he really was truly sorry for what he did, then I forgive him. I did. To this day, I still have. And he's actually really cool. Now, with that said, let's get into the person who's actually the worst. I mean, technically the person I was just talking about, yes, objectively he is worse, no question. However, what this other student did just fills me with rage as to what he did. Because while technically not as bad as the other stuff the other kid did, this really was truly awful. Now, when you arrive at a place like Trinity-Pawling, or even college for that matter, or even if it's a new high school, or really any new place in general, it helps to find familiarity with others as quickly as possible. You know, it's like when you enter high school. You know, obviously, you know, you're not the only one from your old middle school to go into high school. You're sure to find someone there that you know, whether they're your friend or not. Like, I mean, I know the phrase is always nice to have friends close by, but the point is familiarity. That's the secret to finding your comfort zone when you first arrive at a new place. Trinity-Pawling was my first experience of never really having anything like that. When I got there on September 2nd, 2008, I truly was all alone. Like, it was, like, that first week was essentially like, get up, cross country, get food, second cross-country practice, go to bed. I mean, I warmed up to some people for sure. In fact, my very first friend I met as we're like climbing up Star Hill in cross-country practice. And the next day at like the 300, because if you do cross-country, you have like a 3,000 meter time trial. And I got like top 5 or 6 or 7 in that. And a couple guys like, man, for a big guy, you move pretty fast. This is back when I was like well over 200 pounds, by the way. So, and listen, I did football in high school. I had no business being that. And I was a lineman. I had no business being that good in cross country, let me tell you what. So, of all the teammates and students that I knew, there still really wasn't anyone I was familiar with, or anyone I could relate to. And then there was one student who was there. And let me tell you, our credentials were near identical in terms of what we were there for. Like, he was from upstate New York, I was from upstate New York. He wrestled, I wrestled. He was doing cross country, get in shape, I was doing cross country, get in shape. There's a phrase from Naruto, of all things, where I'll never forget because it's one of my favorite sayings of all time. It was when Pain is first talking to Naruto about how he and Jiraiya, they were both trained under Jiraiya. And Pain's like, that makes us sibling students. We ought to be able to understand one another. That's exactly what this student was with me. Like, we're from upstate New York. I'm from Section 4. He's Section 1. You know, we both wrestled. We were both doing cross country for the sake of getting ready for wrestling. Like, of all the students there, he and I ought to have been able to understand each other the most of anyone. And in the beginning, it was. Unfortunately, like, because I wrestled like 215 at the time, I had to wrestle with like the 285 pounders. Meanwhile, he was like 189. Literally, our weight classes were right next to each other. But he wanted to wrestle with the 171 pounder, which I'll get to in a minute. This is back when the weight classes were a lot different than they are now, by the way. I'm sure some of you heard like those, I'm sure any of you wrestlers out there heard those numbers like, wait, 171, 189, 215. This is back in my day. Things have changed. Anyway, so over time, he did grow to be kind of smug and kind of the 89 pounder, the one I'm referring to, the one that I literally just said we all be able to say one another. The camera's messed up. Hold on. There we go. So he did grow to be a little bit conceited, but I'll admit he was the better wrestler than me. He was. I mean, keep in mind, I was either contemplating how I was going to commit suicide, or I just like, you know, stopped contemplating suicide, but I had no idea what to do. Like, that was the mentality I was going through. I guess you could say I pretty much went through the motions, which, no, isn't a good thing, but you can't say I wasn't present for everything. Then it comes to the weekend of New England. It's pretty much the last wrestling tournament we went to, which was kind of weird, the way the season worked out. See, you would think like after it would be Western New England's, and then Nationals if you qualified. What happened was we had Western New England's, then we went to Nationals, more of that in a second, and then we went to New England's. And it was at New England's that took place at Avon Old Farms, which was actually Trinity-Pawling's one of Trinity-Pawling's biggest rivals, where a bunch of us were on the bus, just shooting skeet, and, you know, messing around. And I'm eating a Quaker Chewy granola bar, right? And, you know, I'm eating it, and the 171 pounder was acting annoying. So, I called him a little bitch. The guy puts me in a headlock while I'm swallowing the Chewy bar, so I am quite literally choking. He eventually lets go, and my face is like beet red. My eyes are slightly teary, because again, I'm choking. And, you know, I mean, it looks as if I'm crying when I'm really not. The 189-pounder, the person I've been alluding to, the person that I think should have, he and I should have understood each other the most. He recorded the entire thing. And I'd say about a month later, he promoted it, saying I was crying. And then everybody made fun of me for it. Where do I begin with this? Well, first of all, I explained my side of the story, so I can tell you for a fact I wasn't crying. I'm sure some of you are probably wondering, well, you're mad at the 189-pounder. What about the 171-pounder, the one who put you in a headlock after you called him a bitch? Aren't you mad at him? You know what? I was. However, remember how I mentioned that we went to Nationals before New England's? Nationals took place at Lehigh University. And it just so happens, our 171-pounder, again, the one who put me in a headlock, his family lives right near Lehigh University. So rather than spend like a couple nights at a hotel, we spent the night at his place. And let me tell you, this kid's parents were the nicest people ever. Like, they didn't just take us in. Like, they made us home-cooked meals. And keep in mind, like, I hadn't had a home-cooked meal since I left my house after New Year's at that point. Because pretty much when the New Year started, we had to go back to Trinity-Pawling. So I hadn't had a home-cooked meal in weeks. And it was just a warm, friendly environment. Again, this kid's parents were the nicest people I'd ever met. Which leads you to believe the apple fell pretty far from the tree. So just because his parents were, so nice to us, they took us in, they made us dinner. As mad as I was at the 171-pounder, I had to cut him a little bit of slack. Again, maybe the apple fell pretty far from the tree. Maybe he was just being an idiot at the time, and maybe he's gotten a lot more mature. I don't know. But I couldn't quite bring myself to be fully mad at him as I am at the 89-pounder who, again, I thought I'd be able to understand and relate to the most. So, again, you're probably wondering, why haven't I forgiven him? Well, there's several things involved. Shortly after he promoted that video, and again, promoting that I was crying when I really wasn't, I'm walking out of Dunbar, the dorm. Actually, that's another thing. I lived in Dunbar North, he lived in Dunbar South. Quite literally the same dormitory. I mean, different sections of it, but same building. It really was a sign as if, like, God wanted the two of us to meet and therefore become friends and understand one another. Sadly, that didn't work out. And then, like, the only reason why I didn't beat the shit out of this guy was because I didn't want to get in trouble. That is the only reason why. I mean, listen, I mentioned how he was the better wrestler than I was, and I'll fully admit that. But that's because I never wrestled angry. Honestly, my technique for wrestling was, keep a level head. If nothing else, you gotta keep a level head when you wrestle. That's how if you don't keep a level head, you really are more likely to lose that way. That's fact. Ask any wrestler you ever meet, and they'll tell you, if you wrestle with a level head, you perform much better. And that's what I did. I never attacked anyone out of anger. Trust me, there's one person in my life I'm really saving that for, but that's a story for another day. Don't you worry. So I took the high road and did nothing. And then there's the fact that, remember how earlier in the video I mentioned who by objectively, like the the kid who I mentioned, like, you know, hit me in the you-know-where, threw a book in my head, threw a bottle in my head, all that stuff. He's objectively worse. He is, but I was able to forgive him. Just due to the fact it'd been a really long time, and he, of all people, reached out to me. I had no intention of ever seeing this person ever again, or even talking to this person ever again, and he reached out to me. I forgave him. But when it comes to the 189 pound, the one, again, I've been saying this entire time, he and I should have understood each other the most. He not only made a video showing everyone, promoting that I was crying when I really wasn't, he never apologized. Moreover, it's been 15 years, not once has he reached out. And moreover, he made fun of me for crying. I have a question for all of you. At what point did it ever become acceptable to ridicule someone for being human? Because I can tell you right now, earlier that year, before we all left for winter break, we lost one of our own to suicide. I'll talk about that more in December. After that service we had for him, because it's a chapel on campus, you know, we had to be in chapel every day. We had a service for him. After that service was over, there wasn't a dry eye anywhere. Virtually everyone I saw around me was crying. And no one made fun of anyone for that. Not once. So, no one makes fun of anyone for crying when we lose one of our own. But recording a video of someone in a headlock and then their face being beat red because of it, first of all, that doesn't constitute crying. That's just someone being put in a chokehold. Second of all, you're making fun of them for crying? For showing emotion? I'm sorry, but crying is the most beautiful human thing a person can do. And when you ridicule that, that's just plain cruel. In every sense of the word. As bad as that is, I did learn something from it. It was from that moment on, I made a solemn vow. That if I ever see anyone crying, I will never make fun of them for it. Nay, I won't do nothing. I will help them. Hell, I will even cry with them, if at all possible. Because your emotions really are one of the only things you have that truly make you human. Yeah, we all have emotions, and yeah, everyone processes things differently. But at its core, your emotions are the one thing that make you, or one of the things that most make you you. And when you make fun of that, why? Of all things to make fun of anyone for. I mean, listen, I like to think I look okay, but I like to think I made some bad decisions. I've done stupid things. And I don't look nearly as good as I do now. I've been made fun of for being stupid. I've been made fun of for making stupid decisions. I've been made fun of for not looking very nice. Sure. But you know what? I can always change that. And in a lot of respects, I did. But to make fun of your emotions, which is something that we all have, and in a lot of respects, you can change, but you can never fully get rid of, I guess. Where does a person get off doing that? So, yeah. Now you know who the worst student I ever met at Trinity-Pawling is. Again, I dealt with one student who did nothing but throw books at my head, hit me in the you-know-where, etc. I forgave him because he reached out. We didn't really speak very much other than the fact that, you know, he sent me a friend request. But you know what? We're guys. We don't really do much with talking, in case you haven't figured that out. But it's been 15 years. And this student, my teammate, the 189-pounder, who again, also was from upstate New York, also wrestled, also just cross-country better, also lived in the same dormitory as I did, and was also a PG. The one student that we understood the most, where I think the two of us should have understood each other the most. I haven't spoken to him in years. Haven't heard from him in years. I mean, I don't want to say he's dead, obviously, because I'm pretty sure I would have known that if that was the case. But that should tell you right there. He has no interest in Trinity-Pawling or me or anything Trinity-Pawling related anymore. And in some respects, I don't blame him. My time at Trinity-Pawling was far from perfect, but I'll never forget it. And much like I said, involving the teacher I had, who was the worst teacher I ever had last week, there is a very high probability I am never going to see this person at the reunion. No way. I'd be shocked if he was there. However, I will say, if he were to apologize after all this time for what he did, and he were to come to me and say that, and if he was truly sorry, well, for starters, no one would be more surprised or happy than I would. And again, much like the first student I mentioned, again, the really bad one objectively, if he really was truly sorry, then I would forgive him. That has yet to happen. A part of me at this point is skeptical as to if it's ever going to happen. But for the last 15 years, the ball's been in his court. And he has yet to make a move. But, much like I said in last week's video, people do have the capacity for change. So maybe. Sorry this video seems kind of melancholy, but if I'm going to go back to Trinity-Pawling, this was definitely a story I needed to tell. I mean, I've told the story before, but this is probably the most in detail I've ever told the story. And again, if nothing else, you know, I learned that not only are emotions beautiful, but I will never make fun of anyone for crying, ever. In fact, if I see anyone crying, if at all possible, I'll even cry with them. And for the record, it's also why I am in love with the Inside Out movies. Because those movies are exactly the kind of message I've been promoting this whole time. So, yeah. You know what? I'm going to watch Inside Out. I think Inside Out 2 might be on Disney+. I might watch that too. I hope y'all like this video. Don't like this YouTube channel on social media. As always, I'm your home news video before you guys watch the show. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Remember, if you guys want to talk channel, we can let you know you're back. Take care. And as always, make good choices. 607 all day, baby. I can't believe you can go back to Trinity-Pawling anymore. That's going to be awesome.